The cafeteria at Galactic Academy was loud that Tuesday afternoon. Hundreds of alien students filled the massive hall, their voices mixing together in a strange chorus of clicks, whistles, and sounds that didn't exist back on Earth. Connor Blake sat at his usual spot in the corner, trying to figure out what the food machine had given him this time. It looked like purple jelly but tasted like chicken. Weird, but he'd gotten used to weird over the past 3 months. Being the only human at an alien school definitely took some getting used to. He glanced around the cafeteria while he ate. Most species stuck to their own groups. The insect-like Chitauri buzzed together near the windows. The floating energy beings called lumens hovered over their special tables. And the Draker, those massive reptile guys who looked like dinosaurs mixed with bodybuilders, dominated the center section like they owned the place. That's when Connor noticed her again. The small alien girl with lavender-colored skin sat 3 tables away, completely alone. She had these glowing patterns running down her arms that pulsed softly, like a gentle light show. Connor had seen her around for about a week now. She always ate by herself, always kept her head down, always seemed like she was trying to disappear into the walls. He felt bad for her. He'd been the new kid before. It sucked. She was carefully eating her lunch, some kind of green soup, when 3 Draker students walked up to her table. Even sitting down they were huge. Standing up, they were almost 8 feet tall with scales like armor and claws that could probably rip through metal. The leader was a guy named Torvik, and Connor had learned to stay out of his way. Torvik was a classic bully. Big, mean, and always looking for someone smaller to push around. Connor couldn't hear what Torvik said to the girl, but he saw her shrink back in her seat. Her glowing patterns started flickering frantically, changing colors like a broken neon sign. Torvik's 2 friends, Rax and Grender, circled around her table, blocking her in. The cafeteria started getting quieter as other students noticed what was happening. That's how it always went. Something bad starts, everyone stops to watch but nobody does anything about it. Connor watched Torvik lean down and say something directly in the girl's face. She trembled, her whole body shaking. Then Torvik did something that made Connor's stomach turn. He swept his massive clawed hand across her tray, sending her food flying. The green soup splattered across the polished white floor in a wide arc. Her bowl clattered and spun before settling upside down. The crash echoed through the now silent cafeteria. Every student in that massive hall stopped what they were doing. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the automatic doors seemed to pause their constant swooshing. Everyone turned to watch. Torvik's voice boomed across the space, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Pick it up, surface crawler. Use your mouth. That's where your kind belongs anyway, right? Down on the ground with the rest of the trash." The girl's glowing patterns turned a dark, pulsing red. Connor had learned enough about Valkorian biology to know that meant fear and deep shame. She slipped off her chair and dropped to her knees on the cold floor, reaching toward the spilled soup with shaking hands. Her fingers trembled so badly she could barely move them. Connor looked around the cafeteria. Hundreds of students. Dozens of species. All of them watching. And every single one of them looked away. Some found their own food suddenly fascinating. Others pulled out their data tablets and pretended to read. A few got up and left quickly, not wanting to be anywhere near the situation. Even the students who looked uncomfortable, the ones whose expressions showed they knew this was wrong, they all did the same thing. Nothing. They did absolutely nothing. The girl on the floor let out a small sound, something between a whimper and a sob. Her glowing patterns were going crazy now, flashing between red and black. She reached for a piece of food on the floor, and Connor saw a tear run down her purple cheek. Something in his chest tightened. He'd been that kid. Back in 7th grade at Riverside Middle School, he'd been the new student who got picked on. He remembered eating lunch in the bathroom stall because he had nowhere else to go. He remembered hoping, praying that anyone would stand up and help him. Nobody ever did. Connor had promised himself something back then. He swore that if he ever saw someone else in that situation, if he ever had the chance to be the person he'd needed, he wouldn't look away. He wouldn't pretend not to see. He wouldn't be like all those people who let it happen. His chair scraped loudly against the floor as he stood up. The sound cut through the silence like a gunshot. Heads turned toward him. Even Torvik paused and looked over. Connor picked up his drink, some kind of fizzy orange liquid the machine called Zeta Cola. He walked 2 steps to where his friend Austin sat at the next table and carefully set the drink down in front of him. "Hold my drink," Connor said clearly, his voice carrying across the silent cafeteria. Austin's eyes went wide. "Dude, what are you doing?" Connor didn't answer. He just started walking toward Torvik and his gang, his footsteps echoing in the quiet. His heart was hammering so hard he could feel it in his throat. His hands wanted to shake, but he kept them steady at his sides. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to sit back down, to mind his own business, to not make himself a target. But he kept walking anyway. Because someone had to. Trevor walked across the cafeteria with measured steps, his sneakers squeaking slightly on the polished floor. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat, but he kept his face calm and neutral. Back home, his Uncle Rick had taught him poker during family gatherings. The main lesson stuck with him. Never let them see you're scared even when you're terrified. Especially when you're terrified. As he got closer to Krell and his group, the sheer size difference became even more obvious. Krell stood at least 8 feet tall, maybe more. His dark green scales looked like they could deflect bullets. Those claws on his hands were easily 4 inches long and sharp enough to cut through steel. His 2 friends, Drax and Vexer, were just as massive and intimidating. Trevor was 5'9" and weighed maybe 160 pounds soaking wet. This was possibly the dumbest thing he'd ever done. "Hey Krell," Trevor called out, keeping his voice steady. "I think there's been a mistake here." The massive Draker turned slowly, his yellow eyes narrowing as they focused on Trevor. The temperature in the cafeteria seemed to drop. Other students nearby quickly grabbed their trays and moved away, creating a widening circle of empty space around them. "The human speaks," Krell rumbled, his voice like rocks grinding together. "This doesn't concern you, soft skin. Walk away while you still can." Trevor stopped about 6 feet away, hands loose at his sides, trying to look more confident than he felt. "Actually, it does concern me. See, I'm making it my concern. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to Lissa. Then you're going to get her a fresh meal from the food line. Then you're going to walk away and never bother her again." The cafeteria went even quieter if that was possible. Students from dozens of different species stared with wide eyes. Some had their communicators out, probably recording. This was either going to be really brave or really stupid. Probably both. Krell stared at Trevor for a long moment, then threw his head back and laughed. It was a harsh, grinding sound that echoed off the high ceilings. Drax and Vexer joined in, their laughter mixing with Krell's in an intimidating chorus. "Or what?" Krell leaned down, getting right in Trevor's face. His breath smelled like raw meat and sulfur. "What exactly are you going to do about it, human? Your species isn't even classified as warrior class. You're listed as class 3 survivors at best. Weak, soft, fragile." Trevor didn't step back, even though every instinct screamed at him to run. Instead he smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind of smile his dad had when he was truly angry but staying in control. "You're absolutely right," Trevor said calmly. "Humans aren't warriors. We're not the strongest species out there. Not the fastest either. We don't have scales like armor or claws like knives or any natural weapons at all. Then you're a fool for challenging me. Maybe. But let me tell you something about humans that your databases probably don't mention." Trevor took one deliberate step closer, closing the distance between them. "We're the species that looked at massive predators with teeth like swords and said, 'I wonder if I can ride that thing.' We're the species that got stranded on frozen moons with no supplies and walked through blizzards for days to get home. We're the species that doesn't know when to quit." He paused, letting that sink in. "We're not warriors, Krell. We're something way more dangerous. We're stubborn. Dangerously, stupidly, relentlessly stubborn. Especially when we think something is wrong." Krell's smile faded slightly. Something flickered in his yellow eyes. Uncertainty, maybe. "Brave words for someone about to get hurt," Krell said, but there was less confidence in his voice now. "Then let's not use words," Trevor replied. "Combat arena. Tomorrow at noon. You and me. Standard academy rules. Unless you're afraid to fight someone your own size." He paused. "Oh wait, nobody's your size. Guess you'll have to settle for fighting someone way smaller who still isn't backing down." A collective gasp went through the watching crowd. Trevor had just challenged Krell to ritual combat, the official way students at the academy settled serious disputes. It was supposed to be safe, with holographic safety protocols preventing permanent injury. But it still hurt. A lot. And everyone knew Krell was one of the best fighters in the school. Krell's eyes widened. Clearly, he hadn't expected the human to actually challenge him to a formal fight. "You're serious? You actually want to fight me in the arena?" "Completely serious." "You'll lose," Krell said flatly. "I'll destroy you in under a minute." Trevor shrugged. "Maybe you will. But you're going to have to beat me unconscious to win because I promise you something, Krell. I'm really, really good at getting back up. You can knock me down 100 times and I'll get up 101 times. That's what humans do. We don't quit." For several long seconds, Krell just stared at him. Trevor could see the calculation happening behind those reptilian eyes. Krell was probably trying to figure out if this was some kind of trick or trap. Finally, Krell's mouth split into a predatory grin that showed all his fangs. Accepted. Tomorrow noon, combat arena. Standard rules. I'm going to enjoy breaking you, human. Maybe it'll teach the rest of your kind to mind their own business. We'll see about that, Trevor said. Then he turned to Lissa, who was still frozen near her spilled food, her glowing patterns flickering with shock and fear. He walked over and offered his hand. Come on. Let's get you some actual food. Lissa stared at his hand like she'd never seen one before. Her patterns were pulsing rapidly, shifting through colors Trevor didn't recognize. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached up and took his hand. Her skin felt cool and smooth like polished stone. Trevor helped her to her feet and guided her toward the food line. Behind them, he heard Krell talking to his friends in their guttural language, probably planning how they were going to humiliate him tomorrow. Owen caught up to them, still holding Trevor's drink. His face was pale. Dude, are you completely insane? Do you have any idea what you just did? Yeah, I challenged a 8-foot-tall dinosaur to a fight. I was there. He's going to destroy you? Krell is ranked 3rd in the entire combat program. 3rd out of 3,000 students. He's trained in Draker battle arts since he was like 5 years old. Probably, Trevor admitted, taking his drink back. They reached the food line and he helped Lissa get a new tray. But somebody had to do something. Lissa's voice was barely above a whisper, musical and trembling. What? You don't even know me. We've never even spoken before. Why would you risk yourself for a stranger? Trevor thought about it while he guided her through the food line, making sure she got everything she wanted. The other students gave them a wide berth, staring but not interfering. Back when I was in 6th grade, I was the new kid at school, Trevor finally said. My family had just moved, I didn't know anyone, and I got picked on. A lot. Shoved in hallways. Books knocked out of my hands. Mean notes in my locker. The usual bully stuff. He paused, the memories still stinging even years later. Every single time it happened, I'd look around hoping someone would help. Just one person saying, "Hey, that's not cool," would have changed everything. Did anyone help? No. Not once. Everyone just looked away and pretended not to see. He met her eyes. So I made myself a promise. If I ever saw someone else going through what I went through, I'd be the person I needed back then. I wouldn't look away. Lissa's patterns shifted to a soft, warm gold. In her species' body language, it might have been the equivalent of tears mixed with gratitude. Thank you. But I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Too late now. Besides, maybe I won't get hurt. Maybe I'll win. Owen snorted. The betting pools have you at 20-1 odds. 20-1, Trevor. A Chitauri bookie literally laughed when I asked about betting on you. Then you should bet on me. If I win, you'll make a fortune. If you win, I'll eat my own communicator. They found an empty table and sat down. Within minutes, a few other students cautiously joined them. A nervous lumen named Spark. 2 Chitauri students who introduced themselves as Click and Whistle, their translator rendering their actual names into something pronounceable. Even a young Vornax crystal being named Prism settled at their table, curious about the human who'd stood up to Krell. Word was already spreading through the school network. Human challenges Draker Warrior. Tomorrow's fight was going to be the most watched event of the semester. Trevor tried to eat his lunch, but his stomach was doing flips. Now that the adrenaline was wearing off, the reality of what he'd done was sinking in. He'd challenged someone twice his size and 3 times his strength to a fight. In less than 24 hours, he was going to get absolutely demolished in front of the entire school. But when he looked across the table at Lissa, saw her eating her food with dignity instead of off the floor, saw her glowing patterns returning to their normal gentle blue, he knew he'd made the right choice. Sometimes doing the right thing meant doing the scary thing. Sometimes being human meant standing up even when you knew you'd probably lose. His communicator buzzed with a message from his mom back on Earth. Just a random check-in asking how school was going. Trevor smiled and typed back, "Going good, Mom? Learned an important lesson today. Talk soon." He didn't mention the part about the fight. She'd probably find out eventually, but no need to worry her just yet. Owen leaned over. "So, do you actually have a plan for tomorrow, or are you just going to wing it and hope for the best?" Trevor thought about it. Little bit of both. I'm going to spend tonight watching every video I can find about Draker fighting techniques. Look for weaknesses, patterns, anything I can use. And if you don't find any weaknesses, then I'll do what humans do best. I'll adapt, improvise and refuse to stay down no matter how many times he knocks me flat. Lissa's patterns pulsed with concern. That sounds painful. Probably will be, Trevor agreed. But pain is temporary. Doing nothing while someone gets bullied? That sticks with you forever. Trust me, I know. Across the cafeteria, Krell was watching them, his yellow eyes never leaving Trevor's face. The message was clear. You made a big mistake, human. But Trevor just raised his drink in a mock toast and smiled. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. The observation deck above the combat arena was absolutely packed. Trevor stood in the small prep room below, doing stretches and trying to keep his breathing steady. Word had spread through the entire academy like wildfire. It seemed like every single student had shown up to watch the human get destroyed by Krell. Through the translucent walls, he could see hundreds of alien faces pressed against the viewing glass. Some were excited. Others looked nervous. Most just seemed curious to see how badly this was going to go. Owen paced back and forth behind him, practically wearing a hole in the floor. The betting pools are insane, man. 20-1 odds against you. 20-1. I checked the school network and literally nobody thinks you can win this. Trevor touched his toes, feeling his hamstrings stretch. His muscles felt loose and ready, even if his mind was spinning with doubts. Yeah, I'm aware. Then why are you doing this? You could still back out. Just say you're sick or something. Nobody would blame you. I'd blame me. Trevor straightened up and rolled his shoulders. Besides, someone's gotta show these guys that bullying has consequences. Last night he'd stayed up until 3 in the morning watching every video he could find about Draker fighting styles. Not that it helped much. They were bigger, stronger, faster, and had natural weapons like claws and fangs. Humans had none of that. What humans did have was stubbornness and the ability to think on their feet. He hoped that would be enough. The door chimed and a mechanical voice echoed through the small room. Combatants report to arena floor. Match begins in 60 seconds. Trevor took a deep breath and walked toward the door. Owen grabbed his arm. Listen, just promise me you'll tap out if it gets too bad, okay? Your pride isn't worth getting seriously hurt. Trevor managed a weak smile. I'll be careful. Probably. The door slid open and he stepped out onto the arena floor. The combat arena was massive, easily the size of a football field. It could generate any environment through holograms, from lava planets to ice worlds to zero-gravity space. But today it was set to standard mode. Just a flat surface with neutral lighting and gray walls. No tricks. No advantages. Just two people fighting. Krell was already there, doing some kind of Draker War stance that involved a lot of roaring and chest pounding. He looked even bigger down here than he had in the cafeteria. His dark green scales rippled with muscle. His claws gleamed under the lights. He looked like something out of a prehistoric nightmare. Trevor looked like a high school kid who occasionally went to the gym. The crowd in the observation deck erupted in cheers and shouts. Most of them were calling Krell's name. A few scattered voices cheered for Trevor. He recognized Owen's loyal yelling and thought he heard that Velcorian girl, Lissa, calling out support in her musical language. A holographic referee materialized between them, a glowing blue figure without any real features. Its voice was calm and neutral. Standard Academy combat rules apply. Fight continues until submission, unconsciousness, or voluntary withdrawal. Lethal force is strictly prohibited. Safety protocols are engaged and will prevent permanent injury. Do both combatants understand? Understood, Krell growled, cracking his knuckles. The sound was like tree branches snapping. Trevor nodded. Understood. Combatants ready? Krell dropped into a fighting stance, his yellow eyes locked on Trevor with predatory focus. Ready to break you, human? Trevor raised his hands, trying to remember everything he'd learned from his brief mixed martial arts classes back on Earth. Ready. Begin. Krell charged immediately. Trevor barely had time to process it. 1 second Krell was 15 feet away. The next he was right there, covering the distance in 3 massive strides. His fist came down like a sledgehammer. Trevor tried to dive right but wasn't fast enough. The blow caught his left shoulder and sent him spinning like a top. Pain exploded through his arm and he hit the ground hard, sliding across the smooth floor. His mouth filled with the copper taste of blood. The crowd roared so loud it hurt his ears. Trevor pushed himself up, shaking his head to clear the stars from his vision. His shoulder screamed in protest but nothing felt broken. The arena's safety protocols would prevent bones from shattering, but they didn't do much about pain. That was very, very real. Krell stood a few feet away, grinning with all his fangs showing. Stay down, soft skin. Save yourself the pain and embarrassment. Trevor spit blood onto the arena floor and got to his feet. Not really my style. He charged back in, knowing it was probably stupid but not caring. If he was going down, he was going down fighting. What followed was 5 straight minutes of Trevor getting absolutely demolished. Krell was everything the betting pool said and more. He was faster than something that big had any right to be. His scaled hide acted like natural armor that absorbed most of Trevor's strikes. And his strength was just overwhelming. Every exchange ended the same way. Trevor would try to land a hit. Krell would block or dodge easily. Then Krell would counter with a strike that sent Trevor flying. Sometimes it was a punch. Sometimes a kick. Once, Krell actually picked Trevor up and threw him halfway across the arena. Each time Trevor hit the ground hard. Each time, pain shot through different parts of his body. And each time he got back up. The crowd's cheering started to change. It was still loud, but the tone shifted. This wasn't exciting anymore. It was becoming uncomfortable to watch. The human should stay down. Any reasonable person would stay down after getting hit that hard. But Trevor kept getting up. At the 7-minute mark, Trevor's vision was blurry. His ribs ached with every breath. Blood ran from his nose and a cut above his eye. His academy uniform was torn in 3 places. By every logical measure, he should quit. But something kept him moving. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the memory of that Velcorian girl on her knees in the cafeteria, and the promise he'd made to himself years ago. He got hit again, a spinning back fist that caught him in the chest and sent him tumbling. He slid to a stop near the arena wall, gasping for air. The holographic referee floated closer. Combatant Trevor Ross, do you wish to withdraw? Trevor could barely hear over the ringing in his ears. He looked up at the observation deck. Hundreds of alien faces stared down at him. Most looked shocked that he was still conscious. A few looked impressed. And there in the front row he saw Lissa. Her glowing patterns pulsed with worried blue light. She mouthed something. He couldn't hear it, but he could read her lips. It's okay. She was giving him permission to quit. Telling him he'd already proven his point. But Trevor wasn't done yet. Because he'd noticed something. Something important. Krell was breathing hard now. Not exhausted, but definitely working harder than he'd expected. His strikes were still powerful, but they were coming slower. He'd been going all out from the start, using overwhelming force like every Draker was trained to do. It should have ended the fight in the first minute. But it hadn't. Because Trevor kept getting up. Humans weren't the strongest species. They weren't the fastest or the most dangerous. But they had something else. They were persistence hunters. Back on Earth, humans used to chase prey for days, sometimes weeks, until the animal literally collapsed from exhaustion. It was humans' evolutionary advantage. They could just keep going. Trevor pushed himself up one more time. His legs shook. His vision swam. But his eyes were clear and focused now. He'd figured something out. Krell favored his right side. His powerful strikes left him open for half a second after he swung. And his guard dropped slightly when he thought he'd landed a decisive blow. Trevor could work with that. He got back into his stance, and for the first time since the fight started, he smiled through his bloody teeth. Now came the interesting part. 14 minutes into the match, something changed in the arena. Krell was still powerful, still dangerous, but Trevor could see the differences now. The massive Draker's chest heaved with each breath. Sweat glistened on his dark green scales. His movements, while still fast, had lost that explosive speed from the beginning. He'd been fighting like every Draker was trained to fight, with overwhelming aggression and brutal force, expecting to end things quickly. But quick hadn't worked. Because the human refused to stay down. Trevor's face was a mess. His left eye was swelling shut. Blood dripped from his nose and a split in his lip. His ribs throbbed with every breath, and his shoulder felt like it was on fire. But something had shifted inside him. The fog of pain had cleared, replaced by sharp focus. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was learning. Krell charged again, throwing a devastating right cross aimed at Trevor's head. But this time Trevor didn't try to dodge away. Instead, he stepped inside the punch, getting too close for it to generate full power. The blow glanced off his shoulder instead of his face. At the same time, Trevor drove his elbow up into Krell's exposed rib cage, right where the scales were thinner. Krell grunted. It was the first sound of actual pain he'd made in the entire fight. The observation deck went dead silent. Trevor didn't give him time to recover. While Krell was off balance, Trevor pivoted and kicked hard at the back of Krell's knee, right at the joint. The big Draker stumbled forward, catching himself before he fell, but his guard was down for just a second. That second was enough. Trevor landed a quick jab to Krell's throat, not hard enough to cause real damage, but enough to make him gag and step back. The crowd was losing their minds now. This wasn't supposed to happen. The human was supposed to be unconscious on the floor by now, not landing actual hits. Krell's yellow eyes widened with something Trevor recognized. Surprise. Maybe even a hint of respect. Or fear. Hard to tell with Draker expressions. "You're tougher than you look, human," Krell growled, rubbing his throat. "I get that a lot," Trevor replied, circling carefully. His legs felt like rubber, but he forced them to keep moving. "You want to give up yet? Save yourself the embarrassment?" That was a mistake. Trevor knew it the second the words left his mouth. You don't taunt someone like Krell. Just makes them angry. Krell roared, a sound that shook the arena walls, and came at Trevor with everything he had. No more testing. No more playing. Pure rage. But rage makes you sloppy. Trevor had learned that from his martial arts instructor back home. Angry fighters make mistakes, Coach Patterson used to say. Stay calm and wait for the opening. Krell threw a wild haymaker. Trevor ducked under it and drove his fist into Krell's solar plexus. The Draker scales were thick there, but Trevor had watched enough videos last night to know where the nerve clusters were located. He aimed for the gaps between scales. Another grunt of pain from Krell. Trevor kept moving, kept striking. Nothing he did was powerful enough to knock Krell down, but that wasn't the point. He was targeting weak spots. Nerve bundles. Joints. Pressure points. All the places where even a smaller opponent could cause pain and disruption. Humans had been hunters for thousands of years. They'd learned to take down animals 10 times their size by being smart about it. You didn't fight a mammoth head-on. You studied it. Found its weaknesses. Wore it down. Made it bleed from 1,000 small cuts until it couldn't fight anymore. Trevor was applying that same principle now. Low kick to the ankle. Palm strike to the base of the skull where it met the spine. Elbow to the side of the knee. Each hit individually wasn't much. But together they were accumulating. Krell was slowing down even more, his reactions getting sluggish. The Draker tried to grab Trevor in a bear hug, using his superior size and strength to just crush the human into submission. His massive arms wrapped around Trevor's torso and squeezed. Trevor felt his ribs compress. Air rushed out of his lungs. Black spots danced at the edges of his vision. The safety protocols would prevent his bones from breaking, but the pain was absolutely real and overwhelming. But Trevor had expected something like this. He'd watched videos of Draker wrestlers doing exactly this move. While Krell squeezed, Trevor worked his arms up despite the crushing pressure. His fingers found the pressure points behind Krell's jaw, spots he'd identified in his research. Spots where major nerve clusters sat just beneath the surface. He pressed down hard with both thumbs, digging in. Krell's eyes went wide. His grip loosened just slightly as pain shot through his nervous system. That slight loosening was all Trevor needed. He twisted his whole body, using Krell's own grip as leverage, and threw his weight backward. They both crashed to the arena floor with Trevor landing on top. The impact drove the air from Krell's lungs. Before the big Draker could recover, Trevor transitioned. He'd practiced this move 100 times in his martial arts class, though never on someone this big. It was a submission hold, one that worked by leveraging joints against their natural movement. Trevor got Krell's arm locked behind his back at an angle that made the shoulder joint scream. It wasn't perfect. Trevor wasn't some expert fighter. But it was good enough. The arena's safety protocols wouldn't let him actually dislocate the shoulder, but they would let Krell feel every ounce of pain right up to that point. Yield, Trevor said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper but somehow cutting through the shocked silence of the crowd. Krell struggled, his free arm trying to reach back and grab Trevor. But the position was wrong. Every movement just made the pain in his trapped shoulder worse. Yield, Trevor repeated, applying just a bit more pressure. The entire arena held its breath. Thousands of alien students watching. The holographic referee hovering nearby, ready to call the match. Owen up in the observation deck with his hands pressed against the glass. Lissa with her glowing patterns pulsing frantically. Krell's free hand slapped the floor once. Twice. 3 times. The universal signal for submission. The holographic referee's voice rang out instantly. Match concluded. Winner by submission, Trevor Ross. Trevor released the hold immediately and rolled off, collapsing onto his back. Every single part of his body hurt. His lungs burned. His vision was blurry. But he'd done it. He'd actually won. For a moment, the observation deck was completely silent. Like everyone's brains had temporarily stopped working, unable to process what they'd just witnessed. Then someone started clapping. Slow at first, then faster. Another person joined in. Then another. Within seconds the entire arena exploded in deafening cheers. Not mocking cheers or shocked gasps, but genuine respect and amazement. Trevor just lay there on the arena floor, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember how breathing worked. His communicator crackled to life with Owen's voice screaming incoherently about how that was the most incredible thing he'd ever seen. Next to him, Krell slowly sat up, cradling his shoulder. The big Draker turned to look at Trevor with an expression that might have been anger. Or respect. Maybe both. Then he did something Trevor never expected. He extended his hand. Trevor stared at it for a moment, half expecting it to be a trick. Then he reached up and clasped it. Krell pulled him to his feet with surprising gentleness. "You fight with honor," Krell said quietly, so only Trevor could hear over the roaring crowd. "I underestimated you, human. That was my mistake and I won't make it again." Trevor swayed on his feet, exhausted beyond measure. "Does this mean you'll leave Lissa alone?" Krell's eyes narrowed, then he gave a single sharp nod. "My word as a warrior. She will not be bothered again. I'll speak to my clan. Anyone who targets her will answer to me." "Then we're good," Trevor managed to say through his split lip. "We are not good," Krell said, but there was almost humor in his voice now. "You embarrassed me in front of the entire academy. But you earned your victory fairly and I respect that." He paused, studying Trevor. "Perhaps humans are more dangerous than our databases indicate." Trevor couldn't help but grin despite the pain. "We're full of surprises." 4 days after the fight, Trevor finally got cleared to leave the medical center. The Academy's healing technology was nothing short of miraculous. Back on Earth, the injuries he'd gotten would have taken weeks to heal. Broken ribs, severe bruising, minor concussion. Here, the medical drones had him patched up in less than 100 hours. He still felt sore like he'd been hit by a truck, but at least he could walk without limping. The door to his recovery room slid open and Lissa walked in, carrying a small container that glowed faintly blue. Her skin patterns pulsed with soft amber light, which Trevor had learned meant she was nervous but happy. "Hi," she said in her musical voice. "I brought you something. It's a traditional Velcorian gratitude offering. I had to modify the recipe because some of our ingredients don't exist here, but I hope it turned out okay." Trevor opened the container. Inside were small crystalline cookies that sparkled like they had tiny stars baked into them. He took one and bit down. The flavor exploded in his mouth, sweet like honey but with hints of vanilla and something floral he couldn't quite identify. It was incredible. "These are amazing," he said, reaching for another one. Lissa's patterns brightened to gold, her species version of a big smile. She pulled up a chair and sat next to his medical bed. "I still can't understand why you did it. You barely knew me. We'd never even spoken. You could have been seriously hurt, maybe even killed if the safety protocols had failed." Trevor chewed slowly, thinking about how to explain. "When I was younger, back on Earth, I went through something similar. New school didn't fit in, got picked on constantly. Every single day I hoped someone would step in and help. Just one person saying, 'Hey, that's not right,' would have changed everything." He met her deep purple eyes. "But nobody ever did. So I promised myself that if I ever saw someone else in that situation, I'd be the person I needed back then." "That's very human," Lissa said thoughtfully, tilting her head in a way that reminded Trevor of a curious bird. "What do you mean?" "My people study other species as part of our education. Humans are fascinating because you'll fight for complete strangers. Not for resources or territory or genetic advantage. Just because you believe it's right." Her patterns swirled with colors that Trevor was learning meant deep thought. Most species don't do that. It's both beautiful and kind of scary at the same time. Trevor laughed, which made his ribs twinge. "I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one." She hesitated, her patterns flickering. "Things have changed since the fight. I have real friends now." Owen introduced me to his study group. 6 other students asked if I wanted to join their clubs. Even some of Krell's friends came up and apologized to me yesterday. One of them, Drax, actually seemed genuinely sorry. "That's great. See, I knew people here weren't all bad. It's because of what you did. You showed everyone that staying silent when someone needs help is wrong. That one person standing up can make a real difference." Her skin pulsed with deep purple, which he'd learned was gratitude mixed with respect. "You changed things here, Trevor. The whole academy feels different now." Trevor felt his ears get hot, the way they always did when he was embarrassed. "I just did what anyone should do." "But they didn't." "You did." She stood up. "I should let you rest. But I wanted you to know that you have a friend for life. In Velcorian culture, when someone saves you from deep shame, it creates a bond. If you ever need anything, my family and I are in your debt. You don't owe me anything, Lissa. Friends help each other. That's just how it works. She smiled, a gesture she'd clearly picked up from watching humans. Then as your friend, I'm telling you something interesting. The Academy is adding a new section to combat training. They're calling it Adaptive Combat Strategies, Human Methods. Apparently, the instructors were really impressed by how you fought. Trevor groaned and flopped back on his bed. Oh no. I'm never going to hear the end of this, am I? Lissa's laugh sounded like wind chimes. Probably not. You're kind of famous now. After she left, Owen burst through the door carrying his tablet, his face lit up with excitement. Dude. You have got to see this. If this is about the fight video again. It's way bigger than that now. Owen shoved the tablet in Trevor's face. Someone posted the fight to the Galactic network. Not just the Academy servers, the actual galaxy-wide network. It's got over 15 million views. There are reaction videos, analysis breakdowns, and someone even made it into a song. Trevor grabbed the tablet, his eyes going wide. Sure enough, there was the fight footage titled "Human Refuses to Quit Against Draker Warrior." The comments section was flooded with posts in dozens of different languages, all auto-translated. One from a Centauri merchant read, "This is why you don't underestimate humans. They're not the strongest or fastest, but they refuse to accept defeat. Terrifying." Another from a Kelran philosopher, "Notice how the human adapted mid-combat. Most species rely on instinct and training. Humans think and improvise. Fascinating and dangerous combination." A Chitauri warrior had written, "Watch this with my combat instructor. She's now adding human persistence tactics to our curriculum. The human didn't win with strength. He won by refusing to lose. There's a difference." Trevor scrolled through hundreds more. Beings from across the galaxy were analyzing his fight, discussing human qualities, debating whether humans were more dangerous than their official classification suggested. "This is insane," Trevor muttered. "You're a galactic celebrity now. Owen, check this out." Owen swiped to another page. "The betting pools are already starting for next semester's tournament. You're currently ranked 5th most likely to win. 5th. Out of 3,000 students." Trevor handed the tablet back. "I don't want to be famous. I just wanted to help someone who was being bullied." "Well, mission accomplished and then some." Owen sat on the edge of the bed. "You know what the crazy part is? The cafeteria is completely different now. Species that never talked to each other before are sitting together. I saw a Chitauri helping a Lumen with homework yesterday. Even the tough guys are being more careful about who they pick on." "Really? Really?" One person standing up changed the whole atmosphere. It's like everyone was waiting for someone to show them it was okay to be decent to each other. The door slid open again and Trevor groaned. "If one more person comes in here." But it wasn't another well-wisher. It was Krell, ducking slightly to fit his massive frame through the doorway. Owen immediately tensed, but Krell raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. "Relax, small friend. I'm not here to fight." He looked at Trevor. "I came to return something." He pulled out a small data chip and set it on the medical table. "Fight footage. Unedited, all angles. Figured you might want it." Thanks." Krell nodded once, then turned to leave. At the door he paused. "My clan wants to meet you. They don't believe a human actually beat me fairly. I told them you fought with honor and skill. They want to see for themselves." "Is that going to be a problem?" "No." Krell's expression might have been a smile, hard to tell with all those fangs. "They're impressed. Draker respects strength, but we respect perseverance even more. You embody both." He left without another word. Owen stared at the closed door. Did that just happen? Did Krell just show you respect? "I think so. This is the weirdest week ever." 2 days later, Trevor was finally cleared for normal activities. He headed to the cafeteria for lunch, trying to ignore the stares and whispers that followed him. When he got his food and looked for a place to sit, he found Owen and Lissa had saved him a spot. But they weren't alone anymore. 3 Chitauri students sat with them, along with 2 Lumens, a Vornax, and surprisingly Drax, one of Krell's former crew. "Is this okay?" Lissa asked nervously. Everyone kinda just started sitting together after everything. Trevor looked at the diverse group, all different species, all chatting and sharing food and laughing together. A week ago they would have been at separate tables, divided by species and social groups. "It's perfect," he said, sitting down. Across the cafeteria, he could see Krell at his usual table, surrounded by other Draker. The big reptilian caught Trevor's eye and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Not friendship exactly, but mutual respect between warriors. So, one of the Chitauri students said, her translator rendering her clicks into English. Is it true that humans used to hunt animals by just walking after them until the animals died from exhaustion? Trevor laughed. Persistence hunting, yeah. We're not fast sprinters, but we can keep going basically forever if we need to. That's horrifying, the Chitauri said, but she sounded impressed. That's humans, Owen added proudly. They spent lunch talking and laughing, sharing stories about their different worlds and cultures. At one point, a younger student approached their table nervously, a small amphibian species Trevor didn't recognize. Excuse me, the student said quietly. There are some older students bothering me. Could you maybe? Trevor stood up immediately. Show me. The problem was handled in under 2 minutes, just Trevor walking over and calmly explaining to 3 troublemakers that bullying wasn't acceptable anymore. They took one look at him, remembered the fight, and scattered. Word was spreading. The human who refused to quit. The one who stood up when nobody else would. People were starting to understand that things had changed at Galactic Academy. Later that evening, Trevor stood at the observation window in his dorm room, looking out at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, a tiny blue dot among billions of lights. He thought about home, about his family, about the scared 12-year-old kid he used to be. That kid would be proud of him now. His communicator chimed with a message from his mom back on Earth. Somehow word had reached her about the fight. Her message was short. Heard you stood up for someone. That's my boy. Dad and I are proud. Stay safe. Love you. Trevor smiled and typed back a quick reply. Then he looked back out at the stars. Somewhere out there, on thousands of worlds, beings were learning about humans. Not as weak or average or unremarkable, but as the species that refused to quit. The ones who stood up when it mattered. The ones who were dangerously stubborn when it came to doing what was right. And honestly, Trevor was okay with that reputation. Because being human meant more than just biology or classification or where you ranked on some galactic power scale. It meant standing up when others wouldn't. It meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. It meant getting knocked down and getting back up, again and again until you won or the fight was over. That was what made humans special. And Trevor was proud to show the galaxy exactly what that meant.